going to our last game, our last match. It's gonna be Flash versus Stork on Fighting Spirit. Now, luckily Stork is pretty good at this. Over here on the top right in the red, that is our Storky hero. It is gonna be Stork. Songbyung-gu! My favorite player in the entire world. Down here in the bottom left, in the brown, our Terran player, it's going to be Flash God himself, who's been absolutely crushing through this event match so far. So this is cross-map on Fighting Spirit. That is somewhat of a relief to a Protoss player because Fighting Spirit has relatively small rushing distances, and especially if you scout or if you spawn counterclockwise to your opponent, it can be really difficult to hold off a lot of pressures that come counterclockwise. Did I do that right? Yeah, counterclockwise. Clockwise. No, it's clockwise. If you scout clockwise, or if you spawn clockwise from your Terran opponent, it can be very difficult to hold off those early pressures that can be absolutely devastating because it's just a long suffocation push. Looks like we have a little bit of lag, but hopefully it should solve itself in just a second. Good job. Awesome. But as we've seen, Stork is very good at the PvT matchup. He has a lot of patience. He can deal really well with those early types of pushes, so I wouldn't be too worried for him, but it is one of those things that can be very difficult to deal with if you're not prepared to deal with it. Interesting little graphic there. I'm not sure exactly what that was. Maybe that was like a Flash poster, like a badly drawn Flash. I'm not sure. But Flash going for this barracks out of the natural, definitely going to be going for that fast expansion off of no gas. Behind the Stork, probably going to be going for something pretty standard as well. Both these players having a gentleman's agreement, no early pressure, we're just going to relax, play a normal game, which is pretty cool to see. I'm always down for seeing Stork play a long macro game. So, small thing to note, by putting that cybernetic score up at the top, that actually creates a full wall off for vultures later on in the game. So it's one of those nice things where vultures can't actually jump in around the top side of the base and get into the back of the mineral line. They have to come from the other side. This is one of those things that you'll see quite often with Stork, is his building placement is just absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful the way that he does his pylon placement, the way he molds his buildings into certain ways to scout for certain things. This is an interesting pylon, but this is something that Stork does also quite a lot, is he tries to hide his second pylon, because if the Terran player doesn't scout you first, you can hide a pylon, and it can be very difficult to actually see what's going on. You start panicking as the Terran player, like, oh, is there a proxy somewhere out on the map? You have to send out another SCV to scout. You may even build a blind eBay, even a blind turret, just to hold it off. As we've seen, Flash is still very good at dealing with those sorts of mind games, but you definitely have to take into account that Flash, in the back of his mind, has to be thinking, something's up, something's up. There's only one pylon in the space. So Flash is going to scout in here. He's only going to see one pylon, and you're going to see he's immediately going to start scouring the edges of the map, so start looking for that. So bunker going down, going to be protecting those buildings for now. He manages to scout this pylon right away, so he's going to be having a small sigh of relief. He knows nothing too crazy is going to be going on. And Stork actually just taking his expansion off of a single Dragoon. Very greedy, but at the same time, very strong against what his opponent is doing. And second gateway going down as well before the robotics facility. This is just to make sure that he doesn't die to any kind of early gas attacks. He scouted very late. This is kind of the Stork special, as we've seen in PvT, going for this almost blind expansion without scouting at all. And as a result, he has to get that second gateway up a little bit sooner so he can add on more Dragoons. If he doesn't get that second gateway up, he can find himself in a position where his opponent went for a fake double, for instance, and can start moving out across the map very aggressively, and he won't have enough goons to actually deal with it. So this particular build is pretty good for that. Now he's going to see his opponent, see where he scouts. Seeing the bunker at the front, he knows there's a very good possibility his opponent also went for that fast expansion, and he's just going to be adding on more and more goons behind this. getting up that robotics facility as soon as he gets that 200 gas. So that should be coming down pretty soon. Transferring probes over to the natural, pretty nice. Now he's going to be putting on a little bit of pressure. Now, that might have looked like a little bit of a mistake, but Stork consistently does this where he walks in range of the bunker just to see how many Marines are in there, because that is an important indicator of how greedy your opponent plays. If you move up there and you only take a little bit of damage, you know that your opponent maybe only put one Marine in there and played ultra greedy on the Marine count. And if your opponent does do that sort of thing, then you can just go ahead and actually just run by straight into the back of the mineral line, or you can run up and snipe SCVs with impunity. You don't have to be afraid of the bunker itself, you have to be afraid of the Marines inside the bunker, and if there aren't many Marines, you don't have to be all that afraid. So Flash is going to have to rapidly put on a lot of SCVs. Stork may try to snipe one or two of these SCVs before going back. First tank is out, going to start pushing this back as soon as siege mode is done. Yeah, here it goes, trying to snipe off as many of these SCVs as possible. Wow, Flash doing a fantastic job of pulling that back. Doesn't lose even a single SCV off the back of that. Now that siege mode is finished, that's going to push that back. Meanwhile, behind the Stork taking ultra fast third base, probably going to be going to those Reaver drops as well. That is what we've seen kind of become the standard of TVP as of recent. Going for those Reaver drops just allows you a ton of pressure out on the map. It allows you to kind of prevent your opponent from moving out. Plus, it's also kind of another Stork special. Stork very comfortable with his drop play, but oh, looks like he's pulling up a couple of these probes over here, maybe dropping his macro a bit. Behind this, he's got tons and tons of units up here. It looks like it's actually might just be the Observer, no Reaver drop, so just a very greedy third base coming out from him. Behind this, he's actually just going to start adding a lot of gateways. This has also been something Stork has felt very comfortable with. Instead of very quickly teching up to the Stargate tech, instead of getting lots of extra units, or sorry, getting lots of extra tech up early on, instead, Stork generally favors getting a lot of extra units up in this matchup, which just allows him to crush any kind of early pushes that come out from his opponent. And I like this sort of play coming out from Stork. It's really, really cool to see. But he's got to always be careful about maybe overproducing versus a Terran that powers ultra hard. In this particular case, though, Flash is just going to be playing it fairly safe. He's actually got a starport on the way, so he's probably going to be going for some drops early on with these vultures, just trying to get some economic damage while he takes this third base. This is a smart way to just kind of safely power up while also putting damage back on your opponent. You could go ultra greedy and just build a ton of tanks and just mass up tons and tons of tanks, push out across the map. But when you do it like this, you actually have a lot more chances to slow down your opponent and slow down what they can actually do. So I like this build coming out from Stork. Stork actually could have scouted into the main base with that Observer. It looks like that's what he's going to do now. When you know that eBay is coming down that late, you can go ahead and get all the information, scouting information you would like. You don't have to go in ultra hard, but oh, this one barracks kind of out of position. If this gets sniped, that could actually cause a lot of problems for Flash a little bit later in the game, but he's going to start pushing back these Dragoons a little bit. Dragoons, this is a nice small little move from Stork just to prevent his opponent from taking this base too quickly. But he's got to be careful not to take too many tank shots. Looks like he's going to move out of here now, knowing his opponent could actually start doing some serious damage, but oops, accidentally messed up, got stuck on that ramp for a little bit. Dragoons are dumb units, you can't blame them. Behind this, he's actually taken the 12 o'clock base as well, so he's going to have tons and tons of economy behind this. Here comes the early dropship. Looks like he might try to do a Bulldog. And Bulldog wouldn't be a really bad idea at this particular point in time. As you can see, he's just massing up all the gateways, up to 7 gateways now. He's going to go up to probably 10 quite shortly, and maybe up to 12 or 14 once he starts to get that 4th base up and running as well. So tons and tons of units coming out from Stork, but Stork is so good about always just making sure that his bases are well taken care of. He's always making sure that he has units in position. He's not going to get surprised by any sort of vulture shenanigans. Stork with just tons and tons of units. Looks like he didn't go for that Bulldog. Instead, just going to be playing it a little bit safe back at home, knowing that his opponent doesn't have a lot. It's going to be a while before Flash is really built up and really confident pushing out with the +2/+1. And behind that, Stork is just going to power ultra hard. He's going to get up his extra tech. He's going to get up a lot of gateways and be really greedy with his unit count. Not going to be making too many Dragoons too early on. And look at this beautiful net of vision coming out from Stork. He has a line of pylons and observers just moving out across the map. So he kind of sees basically anywhere that vultures might get into his base, might start threatening him. So this is actually really, really beautiful. Got so much vision out on the map, and here comes even actually putting down a cannon in the main base just to be a little bit safe. Going up to 10 gateways now, going to be adding on a few more once that 4th base starts up and running. He's starting to build up quite a bit of money, and you'll see him start to drain that out and turn that into supply quite soon. Flash slowly pushing out into the map with a couple missile turrets. He's got to be careful though. He doesn't want to actually get broken. This looks like it might actually be a potential timing from Stork before Flash actually gets too much stuff out on the middle of the map. Maybe just trying to whittle away the tank count and punish Flash for moving out too early. But looks like he's setting up, maybe not at this angle though. Usually you want to hit the tip. This might be a bit of a mistake, but the Zealot bombs so far are really good. Flash doing a good job of focusing down all of the Zealots with his vultures, but is this enough to actually break this tank line? It doesn't look like it. Unfortunately for Stork, he's going to be falling quite down low in supply, and just enough vultures to kill off all those Zealots. Really nicely done by Flash. He's going to be able to kill off all of those Dragoons, and that is pretty rough for Stork right now. Stork really invested a lot into that, but Stork is on a lot of bases. It's not going to take too long for him to re-macro, and here are the High Templar. This is something that Stork almost exclusively does, where he goes for lots of High Templar early on, but Flash is just blitzing, and as soon as he knows that he's done a lot of damage, he's just going to be going for it, and this is the +2/+1 timing that is so scary. Even putting up some missile turrets over here, it's going to be so hard to actually get anything done over here. I honestly wouldn't mind a Storm going down on top of that SEV, preventing it from actually building that turret, because once that turret comes out, it's going to be a lot harder, but instead preferring to spend it on killing a lot of those vultures, and he's going to have to side this 4th base for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. He really needs to start setting his eyes on expanding down to the lower right-hand corner and just giving this base up, because it's going to be very hard to actually hold. Hey, Old Man Prof, thanks for joining the chat, tuning in. We are on our last series of the day, unfortunately, but we are going to be finishing up fairly soon. Unfortunately, losing a couple of Dragoons over there to those Spider Mines, that's a little bit of a problem, but because he's starting to threaten this lower part of the map, Flash just had to move back a little bit more. He needs to not lose that. Oh, he's gonna lose the Arbiter. Oh, okay, one more hit. It's still alive. Okay, good. Arbiters take so long to build. They're so expensive. You have to be careful about how you use them. You can't just lose them right away like that. But doing a really good job finally now of sniping the rest of these tanks. And small win for Stork for losing his base, but he really needs to start ramping up the production pretty soon, or else he's going to start falling behind quite heavily. Luckily, he can remake this expansion. As long as he saved a lot of those probes, he should be in decent shape to actually follow up on this, but losing that army early on was pretty brutal for him. He's been struggling just to keep up in the unit count, and Flash has just been absolutely non-stop making tons and tons of vultures, tons of tanks behind this, but Stork needs to be a little bit careful about this. He needs to not go in too early, and Flash is looking for this play. He really wants that good EMP on top of the Arbiter, nothing else. Gonna try to drop a few Zealots, but Zealot bombs on top of unsieged tanks, not really all that big of a deal. And Flash is just gonna A-move his way to victory through this army, now threatening the 3rd base and even the natural. Stork just kind of falling apart. He continues to play into Flash's hands, Flash says, okay, go ahead, go engage enemy. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. Another Arbiter coming out, but this one doesn't have any mana. There's going to be none of those stasises, and this is just pure Dragoons versus pure tanks. That is not what you want at all. Where are the Zealots? Zealots finally coming in right now. Good Storm coming down on top of those tanks. Going to be able to kill them off quite easily, and maybe Stork has actually done a pretty decent job of pushing this back, but the supplies tell the entire story. The supplies down by 40 supply, 30-40 supply is Stork. He's definitely trying to macro, but Flash is getting up his fourth base behind this. This base over here isn't even saturated. There's nothing that Stork can actually do about that right now, and Flash is starting to really aggressively expand across the map. Could be problematic. Looks like Stork did lose a lot of his probes up there earlier. Gonna be running into a ton of spider mines. Is he gonna be able to actually kill off these tanks? Wow, those spider mine hits were huge on those Zealots, being able to kill them all off. Even though it did kill off the tanks in the process, it got way better value for what it actually did. And there's no other base of operations for Stork. This is all of his reinforcements running through this one area, and just pure Vulture is going to be able to clean up a lot of these units over here. Going to be killing off tons and tons of probes. All of the production for Stork is feeding through this one area right now, and with these Science Vessels still up in the air, this cloaking from these units will be able to not do much damage, but finally getting a couple of Zealots on top of these tanks might be able to finally clean up the rest of them. But look at the mini-map, tons of units still flooding across the map. It's just a party push for Flash. Same thing that we saw in his game versus Shine. It's just looking like Zerg, just tons and tons of units pouring across the map in rallies over and over and over, and Stork just doesn't have anything to hold it. It's absolutely insane. The angle just keeps getting worse and worse from Stork. He's going to be tapping out pretty soon. I think once this natural finally gets broken, there's the GG. Well played by Flash, just completely obliterating Stork. Just having better engagement.